Hi and welcome to BritHawk's 3DP. Today I'm going to give a small example of bed leveling. The reason I'm going to do this is I've had hundreds of requests for information on how I bed level. Okay, that's a lie. But I have had a few requests of how I bed level, what way I do it on particular printers and so on. So I wanted to give you an idea, because generally when I do my videos on assembling printers and reviews, I kind of skip over the bed leveling as it's a monotonous job that needs to be done. Now, to start this video, I wanted to mention some of the truths I found out about printers and bed leveling in my experience. And I must state, I'm no expert. I've been doing this for a year and a half. I've had 5, 6, 7 printers, and in that time I've come up with the way that I bed level. I don't use the fancy self-leveling systems which spot the bed and work out a map. I did try it, but I just didn't really get on with it. It seems very complicated to try and install. It slows the whole process down. For the way that I do it, it's pretty quick. The only printer that does have self-leveling is my Delta, which you can't manually level the bed, so it has to figure its own map out for the bed, and it's still not perfect. And the self-leveling part of that I've only ever done a couple of times. In fact, every time I do it I have to get the manual out and go through the procedure because I never remember. So the way that I print is manual. I manually put the G code onto an SD card. I put that SD card in the printers and I run it. And I tend, if I've got it right, I really don't need to play with the bed, but if I do, it's something that I do in the first layer. I always use, well, mostly always use a skirt on my print, and that's where it prints a little line or a couple of lines around the exterior of the print before it starts printing the main part. And when it's doing that, I go really slow, and if I kind of just touch that with my finger, and if it starts to come away, I know it's not right, then I will just tweak the wheels up or down, whichever way I need to go. And I never remember, so it always takes a little bit of playing, but I tweak it until I get a nice line. So I do probably 3 or 4 lines very slowly in that skirt just to test the level. When I've got that right, I'm pretty sure, and after doing it for so long, that it's going to print the main first layer well. But I still tend to go slow on that first layer and sometimes watch it just to make sure that that layer's gone down nice and I'm not getting any bubbles up where it's starting to lift off before I go ahead and print and let it go, and then I can leave it and assume, and it is an assume, that it's going to print well. So I'm going to go over what I do to manually level the bed as if it was a brand new printer and run it for you. Okay, let's get this started. Okay, I'm going to run through the process as if this was the first printer. I'm not going to do everything, but I'm going to explain it as best as I can. When I first turn a printer on for the first time after I've set it up, excuse the noise, the fan is on. I tighten the bed all the way down on all 4 corners, as low as I can get it before I home. The reason I do that is when it homes, if there is any issue, it shouldn't slam into the bed. Okay, so I then turn it to auto home, and with my finger hovering over the power button in case something crazy happens, which luckily nothing has ever happened, I hit the auto home and I let the printer home itself. While it's doing this, I'm obviously checking, making sure there's nothing majorly wrong, but that should have all been dealt with in the assembly. I've checked the gantries level, and I will do that again. I will check that with this particular printer, which is the Area one, it's got this nice little gauge on the sides, which it helps you level the gantry if there is an issue. And if there is an issue, I would disable the steppers and then adjust by turning the motors, level the gantry up. After it's homed, I disable the steppers. This is an important step. You need to disable the steppers before you move the head or the bed, so you don't get an electric charge which is created by moving the bed or the head and moving the motors, and which can damage your motherboard. Now, on that point, I do occasionally forget. I do occasionally pull the bed by mistake. You know, I've never had an issue, but I do know it can happen, so it is always best to disable the steppers. So in your menu, which I think is in control, I have to remember, sorry. Okay, and then you'll find it, disable steppers. This can be in different areas on different printers, but on this one, I've disabled the steppers. I can now happily move the bed without worrying. I'm going to take the head, and on the first time I'm just going to get the head close to where I want it to be by adjusting the wheels on all four corners, so there's just a small gap around the bed. When I've done that, I'm going to preheat the bed and the nozzle. It's important to do this because the bed will move as it heats, and as such can affect the level of the bed. So I will take it and I will turn it to prepare, and I'm just going to go preheat PLA and raise it to its temperature. Now this is going to go to 180 on the nozzle. That can be 180, 200, it doesn't really matter. On the bed this is going to go to 70, and with this particular, it's a 24 volt, it's going to get there pretty quick. After it's done that, I'm going to manually level it again. I don't use with this one, it doesn't actually have an automated function really. I've never used it. I just use the disable steppers and move to where I want to be, and then adjust the wheels. And I just use a bit of A4 paper, standard sheet of A4 paper. And when it's to temperature, which it's almost there, so I'm going to start, I slide the paper under and then adjust the wheel till I get a very slight drag. It's almost like I can just feel the fan motor, but I'm just getting a very slight drag. I will then move it to the next corner, slide the paper under and adjust till I get a very slight drag. Move it to the back, and again in approximately a corner, adjust till I get a very slight drag. And let's say when I get it just about right, I can actually almost feel the vibration of the motor, but that might be me. So no drag, and very slight drag. I will repeat that process 2 or 3 times till I'm happy. With the motors, remember, disabled, move the bed around, slide the paper under, and after you've done all 4 corners you might find it changes. That's why you repeat the process till you get a very slight bit of drag. Move it around. If it suddenly gets a bit too tight again, adjust, because that could be the temperature. A very slight bit of drag. Very slight bit of drag. Finally, after I've done that a few times, I might bring it to the middle. And now I'm finding it slightly too much. I will adjust again until I get that just the way I want it. So in theory it shouldn't be touching when the paper's not there, but a slight bit of drag when it is there. Okay. Now, after I've done that, I will either do the test G-code which came on their SD card if it's a brand new printer, and then just see how that goes, or I will use one of my own files to do a quick test. So I just go print from SD card, and I'm not sure what this is, but just do one of these, print from SD card, and of course on the first time making sure everything's okay and ready to switch off if it's not, just a quick switch off. Still not. Okay, it's going to raise the temperature. Now if this is file with a skirt, I'm going to use that skirt to test the level. I will check to see how that skirt prints. If the skirt is printing well, then I can kind of assume it's going to be okay. What I have learned over a long time of printing is that no bed is perfect, at least with the printers I buy, which are lower end printers. I mean, they're still good printers, but they're not thousands and thousands of pounds. So the beds sometimes have a little issue. I mean, this particular one I have is pretty good. Some people's aren't. Okay, so it's now going to start to print. It's going to do a prime line. I don't have a lot of filament in here, so I'm only going to do a quick demonstration. What I will do is, if I need to, slow it right down. It's going the wrong way, but slow it right down to it's really going slow, and then I can just feel to see if that is moving. If it is moving, I can adjust slightly while it's printing, just giving it a little tweak until I get an area where it's not. To be honest, that's not too bad, and I'd probably run with that. But you can see what I'm doing. I'm just going around, touching the brim or the skirt to test if it's stuck well. And obviously this isn't going to affect the print because it isn't part of the main print. Try not to touch this area because obviously I don't want to affect the adhesion on the bed. But this isn't causing any issue, me going around like this and then tweaking it just slightly if I need to, raising or lowering it to get a better level. And then when that's done, I will just keep an eye on the first level, keep it slow. It does help with that first initial level. And with this it seems fine and it is printing well. The bigger the item, the bigger thing you're printing, the more issues you might have. But it is a case of just tweaking it till you get that first level. If you have to stop and start again, you're not wasting too much filament in this first layer. It takes a bit of time, but you'll get a better print by doing that. Now, I don't do this with every print, but I tend to watch the first with most. But on a new printer, I'll do this, you know, as a matter of course for the first few. When I'm happy that it's going to print, I will just kind of let it go and then come and check it, and if it hasn't, I'll restart, but generally they seem to be pretty good. More likely I'll lose adhesion because my bed's dirty. What I will do, I have bought a box of alcohol wipes. I think I paid £16 for this box here, which is 240 wipes. There's 70% alcohol. I find these work a treat. Just a quick wipe with one of these really does help the adhesion. If I've got something that really I'm worried about, or I'm having a lot of issues with adhesion, I might go ahead and use something like this formula. I got this as a sample, and I've got quite a lot out of this sample. Really works well. This is an English company, and I got it at TCT show. They were there, and it really, you know, it does the job. You put it on cold, you then heat your bed up, and it works as a formula where it sticks when it's hot, and when it goes cold it should just pop off. So and it will do more than one print before you have to clean the bed. And when you clean it with alcohol, you would have to reapply. But generally, and with this bed in particular, you can see I haven't put anything on there, just given it a wipe with some alcohol, and it's sticking fine, and it's running that first layer quite well. And that technique I find works really well, and you can, just by fine tweaking and tuning, you can get a good print. I don't use any of the Replica hosts or things like that. I do it all manually, so I still put my SDs on an SD card, transfer it to the printer. To me, it's the simplest and easiest way. Maybe one day I'll try a different system, but at the moment I do this because it works. But just fine tuning, it seems to really work. Check that skirt is nicely stuck down. You know, it's not coming off when I do this. Kind of did a little bit there, but it seems fine now. And just a fine little twist while it's moving. It's going slow. You can just adjust these wheels. The bigger the wheels, they do help. Just to fine tune it. And when you've got it, you might find you won't need to do it again, or you might need to do it now and again if prints start to move, or you just might need to clean the bed. Okay, I hope that helps and gives you some idea of how I set my printers up in the first case, and generally check that my print is going to come out. It doesn't always work. I have had prints fail because of adhesion, but generally I find that system to work. Again, when you first get your printer, you kind of either want to get all the fancy gadgets, and again, I have tried, you know, the systems where it probes the bed and creates a three-dimensional version of the bed and then prints on that. But I haven't had any luck with it. Again, I'm no expert. I must emphasize that. It's just how I've managed to get it to work. And for me, at the moment, it just keep it simple seems to be the system for me. The system of just checking that skirt, making sure it's attached nicely, then allow it to print that first layer. Check to make sure you're not getting any bubbles where it's starting to lift. And if that's gone down well, generally it should be okay. Recently I had a print I was trying, I'd done all that, it printed the first layer perfectly, but because I had a 45-degree angle coming up, even though I cleaned the bed, it's because of that angle it started to warp the print. So I went for a bit of glue, hairspray, whatever you might want to try, but that just held it. And so when I didn't change the bed at all, I just applied a bit of this, run the program again a bit slower on that first layer, made sure it was nice, and it printed perfectly. And that was a 20-hour print, and yeah, it came out lovely, just with a bit of that on the bed. It wasn't this printer, that was the Artillery. That's got a glass bed, but the same process. You still need to tweak it a bit to get that first layer. But with the Artillery, I've done that a few times, but now pretty much I never touch the bed. I just watch that first layer. If it's okay, I let it go. If I'm having problems with adhesion, I give it a good clean. I put a bit of this on if I really need to, but again, I don't do that very often, and let it print. On my CR10S4, I've got the Wham Bam system. I'm showing off the t-shirt at the moment. And all I do with that one, I give it a little clean with the wire wool, I give it a clean with the alcohol, and I've never had to use this sort of system on it. On this particular bed, I have used this. It's a magnetic steel sheet with a PEI sheet, I think, on top. I don't really want to scrub that with the wire wool, so I tend to just clean it with alcohol, and if I need to, I'll put a bit of this specialized 3D model to 3D print plate adhesive, whatever that means. With the Anycubic Cosel Plus I've got, that's got a Wham Bam system on, and that is brilliant. Again, the only thing I need to do now and again is give that a clean with the wire wool and a wipe with the alcohol, and really doesn't give me any issues. Yeah, so that's how I take care of my printers, trying to get that first layer nice, the level correct. But I'll emphasize, my Creality bed was terrible. It had glass on it. I put the Wham Bam on, which because of the shims has improved it, but it's still not perfect. It's a 400 by 400 bed. I think I'd be really hard to get that perfect, but just using that technique, which on that particular printer I have to do every single time. But if I do that, I'll get a good print. If I try and leave it, I won't. With the other printers, I've got the beds there. I'm pretty sure they're going to be okay. The smaller 300 by 300s are a bit closer to perfect, but there is no such thing as perfect, or not with these printers. It's, if you're printing in the middle, check with that brim, it's going to be okay. If you're going full size, you're going to have to do it again. If you're getting really big, or if you're going close to the outside, you're going to have to do that skirt, check it, then you'll start doing the main, and 99% perfect and happy. I'm not going to over worry if I just try and get a first couple of layers when it's that big. With this particular Eri one, it's generally good. I can't do full size on the 400 by 400, it just is impossible. I've tried and got close, maybe 300 by 300, but I did a lot of tweaking to get that right. Anyway, I'm waffling. I hope this helps. Again, I'm no expert. I'm sure there are better ways. I'm sure if you can get those self-leveling systems to work, I wish I could, they might be great. But for me, I just try and keep it simple. Anyway, I hope this helps. If this is your first time watching my videos, please subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, all the medias, Facebook. You'll find me as BritHawks out there. I have lots of designs on the internet. Mainly vases, but other useful prints are on there, on My Mini Factory, Colts, Prusa printers. I have pages on there too where you can download most of my prints for free. I do have a few for sale if you're interested. And as always, and especially in this crazy time of coronavirus, take care of yourselves, keep yourself safe, wash your hands, and as always, happy printing.
Open up, you OPN, bitch, you won't BBM.